Greetings, YouTube viewers, internet entities, as well as anybody else who may be watching, even though if you're watching this, you're probably one of those two things. This is JDL Productions, and I have got a very special smoke alarm to overview in today's video. Now, I wouldn't say it's any more special than many of the other smoke alarms that I've done videos of in the past. But this is what I would consider to be one of my most sought after units from the particular company that it is from, being Sears Early One. And that unit would be this right here. This is a Sears Early One, model 246.57077. I got two of these off of eBay recently, both brand new in box. I'm keeping this one, and I'm going to be shipping the other one off to a friend of mine who, given that the unit does not actually function, at least I cannot get it to, I'll either give it to them to potentially fix, and if they fix it, that's cool, they can have it. And if they cannot fix it, well, then they can just have it as a museum piece. I am shipping it to them for free, by the way. Just in case anybody was concerned. You're really selling your friends broken alarms? No, I'm not. But this unit is a very interesting one in the Sears timeline. Now, this unit was made from the mid to late 70s, this one in particular being dated in 1977. You may notice that the cover is quite a bit smaller in diameter than a lot of other Sears units that were being made around this time. A la the 246.57045. As you can see, the 57077 is quite a bit smaller in diameter. You can also see that this one, initially looking on the front of it, there is no test lens. There is no obvious test button there, whereas there is on this Sears unit. Now, they did have some versions of these with visible test lenses on the front, but they are extremely rare and barely even existent. So here is where things get a little bit interesting with these two Sears units right here. If I zoom in a little further, let's go ahead and pop the covers off of both of them. There's the first one. As you can see, it uses BRK77R internals. You've got your Kobishi CLB27 there, your coffin-style chamber, and your tiered test button. Basically just a BRK77R, or a First Alert SA76RS, another common perception of this PCB. Now let's go ahead and pop the cover off of this other one here, the 57077, which is a little bit more difficult to get the cover off of. Let's go ahead and pop that off. And whoa! As you can see, the PCBs are exactly the same. Now, of course, there are some very minor differences, such as this capacitor right here being orange on this one, whereas it is gray on this one. But as you can see, other than that, the insides are pretty much the same. And if we take a look at the 57077, let's go ahead and zoom in a little further. As you can see, it does in fact have a test tab, or a test button, but in this case a tab, since there is no actual test lens. So what you're basically meant to do is take a small object, such as a screwdriver, and stick it through one of the vents to press down on the test tab. It's a bit of a weird system, but I guess it worked back in the day. Or it at least somewhat worked, based on the obscurity of this particular model compared to this one. because there aren't exactly any date specifications or a timeline that I'm aware of where these two units were, not made around the same time. I'm pretty sure they were being made around the same time. Why they had two different cover sizes, I have no idea. Now, funny enough, they actually did make 57077s, which did have no test button. So they used the same internals as the BRK-77R, and as, of course, this one. But there was no test tab at all. The test tab was completely removed, and you had to test it with smoke. Which is quite odd, considering that there are no BRK units that I know of that used this PCB and did not have a test button. So essentially Sears was just taking them and just removing it entirely. Not sure why, but I guess that's what they were doing. Now, as you may or may know, Cerberus Pyrotronics, which was also rebranding, or which Sears was also rebranding units from around the same time, and they were using PCBs from them around the same time. There was actually one of those that used this cover as well. The model number was different. I don't remember what it was. But there was also a Cerberus version with this cover that used the same internals as the FB1. And then, of course, there was the Sears version of the FB1A, which the FB1A, as you know, is this unit right here. So Sears also had units with this inside. However, I'm sure some aspects of it were kind of adjusted, because if we take the 57045's cover and try placing it on the FB1A's base, you can see that it doesn't exactly snap on. Now, it would if, some things were kind of lowered on the inside, such as the test tab. But, yeah, Sears did have versions of these as well, made around the same time, and with the small covers, like on the 57077. So, yeah, that's just a little bit of interesting history about this unit. Very odd. Don't exactly know why these small cover versions were a thing. I don't know if they were trying to, I guess save money, maybe use less of the material that they were using to, make the plastics for these covers. I'm not sure. Very, very odd. But, yeah, that is essentially the premise of this unit. And if I did not show you, on the inside here, the date is stamped. Let me go ahead and take the cover off one more time, if I can manage to get it off. The date is stamped right there, as you can see, 7081, which the 7 essentially acknowledges that this was from 1977. We did learn that sort of model, or we did sort of learn the system of BRK date codes from that era. And that is how you essentially determine the date, is by that small, either blue or purple print, usually either on the sensor or the PCB itself. As you can see on this one, on the 57045, it is on the sensor. And this one was also made in 1977, so like I was saying, there are absolutely there's no obvious timeline that differentiates the smaller cover units from the larger cover units. They were made around the same time. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some of the things this unit actually came with when I got it. So here's the box right here. And funnily enough, the box this uses is the exact same one that the 57045 came in, which the unit depicted on the box has the same diameter as the 57045. So kind of interesting. As you can see, if we take a look at the bottom of the box, there's your model number listed right there. This is how you essentially determine whether it's going to be a 57045 or a 57077. Here's the back. A lot of the same stuff depicted on the 57045 box. As you can see, it also depicts the internals of a AC-powered Sears unit, which were based on the 769s, which I think they might have had a small cover version of. I'm not entirely sure, but they are quite rare, and if you do find them, they're not easy to find. They're quite rare. So if we take a look on the inside, it did come in this little holder here, which you can see being put to use a little better on this unit. This is the one that I'm going to be shipping to a friend. And it also came with the manual as well as a very not well preserved Mallory Duracell, which had kind of exploded a little bit. Not as big of a mess as some other batteries I've dealt with, but it was still kind of a mess. So yeah, and let's see. There's the other side of the box right there, just kind of, you know, telling you some certifications, telling you Sears' location, liability, just dumb crap like that. So, without further ado, and I'm going to read through the manual right before I finish the video, because I know some of you do like the manual. And little fun fact, the unit depicted on the manual there is the very first unit that Sears ever made. That is a depiction of the 9-57071, which is the BRK SS74R based Sears, which BA&F Vintage does own one of. So kind of interesting. So this, I am assuming, is maybe a somewhat earlier 57077? Because obviously they had not switched the photo around to the newer ones yet. They were still using photos of their older units. But yeah, so without further ado, I am going to pop the cover off. We are going to find a battery and a small object to test it with, which in this case we are going to be using this bolt right here. That'll do the job. Let's go ahead and pop our battery in. And stick the cover back on, hopefully without accidentally pressing down the button and scaring myself during the process. A little bit more, there we go. And now we can go ahead and test it. So 3, 2, 1. And there you go, you heard it. Let's go ahead and test it one more time. All right, and just for the hell of it, I am going to zoom in a little so you can kind of, I guess, see the button being pressed, or the tab being pressed down as I am doing this. Not sure if you can see that well. Let's go ahead and zoom in a little more. Yeah, very, very odd design, if you ask me. So now I'm going to put this off to the side, and we are going to go through the manual. So, as usual, if you want to read anything, just pause. I have not actually read through this manual yet, so we're going to see if there's anything interesting. Make sure it's actually focused. And there is a depiction of the inside. This one does have the vacuum tube test socket. The one depicted on the manual, at least, which is kind of interesting. And there is your warranty right there. And that is about it for the manual. And there you have it. That was an overview and demo of the Sears Early 1 246.57077. Hope you all enjoyed this video and have a good one.